The night was supposed to be ordinary. A quick stop at the gas station, a peaceful drive home, and maybe a late-night call to an old friend. But for Maya Caldwell, that plan unraveled the moment flashing red and blue lights appeared in her rearview mirror. She pulled over calmly, her hands steady on the wheel. She had done nothing wrong. Her registration was up to date, her taillights worked fine, and she was not speeding. As the officer approached, she rolled down her window, her expression neutral. "License and registration," the officer demanded, his voice clipped and cold. Maya handed them over without a word. Years of military training had taught her composure, even in moments that felt off. She watched his eyes scan the documents, then flick back to her. There was something in his gaze, an assumption, a conclusion already drawn. "Step out of the car," she hesitated. "May I ask why, officer?" "You match the description of a suspect we're looking for," he replied. Maya felt her stomach tighten. A description? Of who? She was wearing a plain t-shirt and jeans, her hair tied back in a simple ponytail. Nothing about her screamed suspect, but she knew how these things could go. With slow, deliberate movements, she pushed open the door and stepped out. The officer wasted no time. He grabbed her wrist, twisting it behind her back. "Hey, there's no need for that," she said, her voice calm but firm. "You resisting?" he shot back, tightening his grip. Maya took a deep breath. She had handled worse situations in war zones. She had faced enemies more dangerous than an overzealous cop looking to make an arrest. But right now, she was not in combat. She was a citizen on American soil, being treated like a criminal for no reason. A second patrol car pulled up, and another officer stepped out, a look of curiosity on his face. "What's going on?" "Got our suspect," the first cop replied. "Armed robbery earlier tonight. Witnesses say it was a black female, mid-30s. Maya nearly laughed at the absurdity. She was 35, sure, but she had been nowhere near any robbery. She had just come from dinner with an old friend, a fellow Marine. "That's a mistake," she said evenly. "I did not commit any crime," the officer smirked. "That's what they all say." Maya's patience thinned. "Run my ID, you will see who I am." But the officer was not listening. He was already reciting something into his radio, confirming her arrest before even verifying her identity. She could feel the injustice settling in, thick and suffocating. Then the words that made her blood run cold. "I saw her on the security footage myself. This is her. She is going away for a long time." A blatant lie. Maya's jaw clenched. She had dealt with dishonesty before, but this? A sworn officer fabricating evidence right in front of her? If only he knew. If only he knew who he had just placed in cuffs. Because Maya Caldwell was no ordinary woman. She was a decorated Marine officer, a combat veteran, a leader who had trained soldiers and faced down threats far greater than the man standing before her. And if this officer thought he could railroad her with false testimony, he was about to learn a very painful lesson. Maya stood still, her hands cuffed behind her back, her muscles tensed. The officer's grip was firm, but she refused to let fear take over. Fear was a weakness she had trained to control. She had faced worse in combat zones, where every second could mean life or death. But this was different. This was supposed to be home. This was supposed to be safe. The second officer, younger and seemingly less convinced, hesitated before speaking. "Did you run her ID yet?" The first cop, whose name tag read Henderson, scoffed. "I know what I saw. It was her on that footage." He gave Maya a smug look as if daring her to fight back. Maya kept her expression blank. "You are making a mistake. Run my ID, and you will see that I was nowhere near that robbery." Henderson ignored her, nodding toward his partner. "Get her in the car." The younger officer hesitated again before stepping forward. Maya studied him carefully. He was unsure, hesitant even. That meant he was still thinking, still questioning. She could work with that. As they guided her toward the patrol car, she took a deep breath. She had to be careful with her words, but she also had to make sure they understood. "Look, I have no reason to lie. If you check my record, you will see that I serve this country. I am a Marine officer. I have never been arrested, never been involved in anything criminal. Just check my background." The younger cop's eyebrows lifted slightly, but Henderson smirked. "Oh yeah? And I am supposed to believe that?" He let out a dry laugh. "That is cute. Everybody has a story once they get caught." Maya clenched her jaw. She had encountered arrogance before, men who believed they had absolute power, but this was different. This was not just about ego. This was something deeper. A cop willing to lie, to put an innocent person behind bars. Why? She needed to understand what was happening before it was too late. The moment she was placed inside the back of the patrol car, she exhaled slowly. The cold metal of the cuffs pressed against her skin, a stark reminder of her current reality. But she was not going to let panic set in. Outside, the officers spoke in low voices, their discussion too quiet for her to catch every word. But she could see their body language. Henderson was confident, too confident. His partner still looked uncertain. Minutes later, the younger officer walked to the car and leaned in through the open door. His voice was quieter than before, but his tone was firm. "Look, I do not know if you are telling the truth, but I will check your ID." Maya Mathieu, his eyes. "That is all I am asking." He nodded and walked away. Henderson, however, was not done. He leaned against the trunk of the patrol car, watching her through the glass with an amused expression, as if he had already won. Maya sat back and closed her eyes briefly. She needed to think. If this officer was willing to lie about seeing her on the security footage, what else was he willing to do? And more importantly, why was he doing it? The key to this situation was understanding Henderson's motive. Was it a simple mistake he refused to correct, or was there something more at play? Minutes passed, but to Maya it felt longer. Finally, the younger officer returned, his expression unreadable. He spoke quietly to Henderson, but this time Maya caught a few words. "Military record is clean. High-ranking officer." Henderson's smirk faltered for just a second before he shrugged. "So what? That does not change the fact that I saw her on the footage." The younger officer frowned. "But if she was not there—" "I saw what I saw," Henderson interrupted, his tone sharp. End of discussion. Maya narrowed her eyes. That reaction confirmed what she already suspected. This was not a mistake. This was intentional. She straightened her posture. "Officer, I would like to call my lawyer." Henderson chuckled, shaking his head. "You will get your phone call at the station." Maya had been in enough tense situations to know when she was being set up. And right now, every instinct she had was screaming that something was wrong. The younger officer exhaled, clearly uncomfortable, but he nodded. "Let's get going then." Henderson shot Maya a final glance before getting into the front seat. The doors locked, the engine started, and the patrol car pulled away from the gas station. As they drove through the city streets, Maya kept her mind focused. She needed a plan. She needed to figure out who was behind this and why. Because one thing was clear. This was not just about mistaken identity. This was something bigger, and Maya Caldwell was not the type to let injustice slide. The city lights blurred past as the patrol car moved through the quiet streets. The hum of the engine, the only sound inside. Maya sat in the back, her hands still cuffed, her heartbeat steady but her mind racing. Every second that passed only confirmed what she already knew. This was not just about a false arrest. This was something bigger. She watched the reflection of Officer Henderson in the rearview mirror. His grip on the steering wheel was firm, his posture relaxed. He was too comfortable. He was not second-guessing himself, not worried about being wrong. That meant one thing. He was sure he would get away with this. The younger officer, however, was different. He sat in the passenger seat, staring out the window, his fingers tapping against his knee. He was thinking. That was good. Maya decided to push. "Officer," she said, keeping her voice calm. "What station are you taking me to?" Henderson didn't answer right away. He let the question hang in the air before glancing at her through the mirror. Downtown. She nodded slowly. Downtown. That was not the closest precinct. That meant they were taking a detour. But why? The younger officer turned slightly in his seat. For the record, we should check the footage again when we get there. Just to confirm, Henderson scoffed. I already told you I saw her. You think I am stupid? That is not what I said, the younger officer replied carefully. Maya could sense the tension between them. It was subtle, but it was there. She leaned forward slightly. Officer, what is your name? She asked the younger cop. He hesitated, glancing back at her. Reynolds. Officer Reynolds, she said, her voice steady. You are a good cop, I can tell. You follow procedures. You ask questions. You think before you act. Reynolds shifted in his seat but did not respond. Henderson let out a dry laugh. Nice try, lady. That is not going to work. Maya ignored him. Reynolds, ask yourself, if he was so sure, why didn't he run my ID before making an arrest? Why didn't he double-check the footage? Why are we driving past the nearest station? Silence filled the car. Reynolds cleared his throat. She has a point. Henderson's grip on the wheel tightened. She is trying to manipulate you. That is what criminals do. Maya exhaled through her nose. I am a Marine officer, not a criminal. Henderson slammed his hand against the wheel. And I told you that does not mean a damn thing. The car swerved slightly before he corrected it, taking a sharp turn down a dimly lit street. Maya recognized the area. They were heading away from downtown. She felt her muscles tense. This was bad, Reynolds noticed too. Hey man, this is not the right way. Henderson didn't answer. Where are we going? Reynolds asked, his voice sharper now. Henderson exhaled heavily, shaking his head. Relax. Reynolds sat up straighter. No, pull over, right now. Henderson kept driving. Maya knew that if she did not act now, this could end badly. Henderson, she said, forcing his name out calmly. Whatever you are doing, stop. You do not want to make this worse for yourself. He ignored her. Reynolds reached for his radio. Dispatch, this is Officer Reynolds. Before he could finish, Henderson grabbed the radio from his hand and tossed it onto the dashboard. I said, relax. The car jerked to the side as Reynolds grabbed the wheel, forcing Henderson to slam on the brakes. The tires screeched against the pavement, and the car came to a sharp stop in the middle of the empty road. For a long moment, no. Moved. Maya's breathing was controlled, but inside her instincts were screaming. Reynolds was the first to speak. What the hell is going on, man? His voice was tight, angry. Henderson turned to face him, his jaw clenched. You do not get it, do you? This is bigger than some routine arrest. Maya's stomach dropped. Reynolds frowned. What are you talking about? Henderson exhaled, shaking his head. Look, just trust me, all right? We need to handle this the right way. Reynolds' face darkened. The right way. You are making up evidence against someone who did nothing wrong. You are taking us off course. How is that the right way? Maya saw the conflict in Reynolds' eyes. He was young, but he was not stupid. He knew this was not right. Henderson ran a hand down his face. You don't understand. This is not about her. Maya narrowed her eyes. Then what is this about? Henderson didn't answer. Reynolds reached for his door handle. I am calling this. And Henderson moved fast. Before Reynolds could react, Henderson reached across and grabbed him by the arm. Maya tensed, her heartbeat picking up. Reynolds yanked his arm away. You better let go of me. Henderson's breathing was heavy. Just listen to me. Reynolds glared. Tim. No, you are going to listen to me. We are taking her to the station. We are going to run her ID. We are going to check the footage. And if you are lying, Henderson slammed his hand on the dashboard. I am trying to protect us. Reynolds blinked. From what? Silence. Maya's mind was working fast. There was something deeper happening here. This was not just about her. This was about something else. Reynolds' breathing was unsteady. Pull the damn car over, now. Henderson gritted his teeth but didn't move. Maya's eyes flicked between the two men. She was in the back seat, restrained, But she was not powerless. She knew how to de-escalate situations, how to turn tension into an advantage. She spoke carefully. "Henderson, whatever you are caught up in, this is your chance to make it right. Do the right thing now, and it might not be too late." His jaw twitched. Reynolds sat perfectly still, waiting for Henderson's next move. The engine hummed softly. The street was empty. The city lights in the distance seemed impossibly far away. Then, without a word, Henderson reached for the gear shift. The car started moving again. But Maya knew one thing for sure. This was far from over.